All right. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept by Neely Fuller. This is our final study on the sections on the section General Compensatory Quotations for Thought, Speech, and or Action, pages 440 through 447. And just sharing um, my thoughts on this text in general. It's been just so useful to have this logic in my pocket because it really has helped when interacting with white people, suspected racists. Um, I literally just had a conversation with a white person, and just the code really helped me to keep the conversation in focus, and to not sway myself from discussing the truth. And I did have to read the quote about how when speaking about white supremacy, white people will get offended and non-white people will get embarrassed. I didn't get um, embarrassed, but it seemed like the white person I was talking to may have been gotten a little anxious discussing race in such and in that kind of manner. But yeah, this book is very useful and constructive. Every person should have a copy. ProduceJustice.com, so we could get to that effective number to solve this problem that has been here way too long. And the first quote I'm going to read from this section is page 440. And the code states, be willing to learn from anyone, including your enemies. And yeah, this just makes so much logical sense that there's not much of that I will add to it. It's just that, yeah, of course, you can learn many things from a person who has defeated you. Perhaps they can indicate to you how to correct your flaws, even though they are the ones that potentially gave you those flaws. But yeah, interesting text. I think it makes sense. Interesting quote.
Thank you for that. I have one from page 441. It states, expect the white supremacist racists to use black people as race buffers. The white supremacists sometimes do this to give the impression that black people are most powerful, that the white supremacists...
Craig, your mic cut off. Sound like you went away from the mic. Chime back in when you're able to.
Can I be heard?
Yep, loud and clear.
Sorry. So 441, it says, expect the white supremacist racists to use black people as race buffers. The white supremacists sometimes do this to give the impression that black people are most powerful and that the white supremacists are non-existent. I don't know what race buffer is. I did choose that one just because, given the context of it, this seems like it would fall under something like racial shadowboxing or racial showcasing, where black people are often put in positions that, and they seem to be the problem, when in fact it is always racism, white supremacy that is the issue. But I don't know what a race buffer is, so that's kind of why I chose that one.
That's essentially what it is.
Oh.
What you just described. Did you see the Godfather 2.
I'm not sure. I know I saw the first one. I don't know if I saw the second one.
In the second one, they were in a court proceeding, and they were. And the reason I bring up that movie is because Godfather 1 and Godfather 2 are two of Mr. Fuller's favorite movies. He often talks about those and or used to, and how it is that the strategies and techniques that the Corleones were using are extremely similar to what the racist white supremacists used to maintain the system. So they were in a court proceeding, and they were asking one of the captains, I believe it was, did the Corleones have any buffers? In other words, people that were between the Corleones and other people, so that you couldn't, have a clear strategic understanding of whether or not a Corleone was behind it or not. And that's what the racist white supremacists do. They'll use non-white people, just as the quote says, as buffers, so that you don't know if the message is really coming from a racist white supremacist or not. You'll think the message is coming from a non-white person. And they do this all the time. I was on a job not long ago, and where they hired a black person to be a manager. The white people hired a black person to be a manager so that he could fire a lot of black people. So that when the black people were fired, they could not retaliate and say it was because of racism. The white people know that only white people can practice racism. This is a prime example of that. And they used him as a buffer so that the black people that were fired could not claim that they were fired because of racism. And the white people who practice racism, white supremacy, are very strategic in how they do these things, so that black people will build up animosity toward each other, when all the while it's white people who are behind it. Hope that helped to explain at some level.
Yes, it did. Thank you for the explanation. I definitely understand what a race buffer is now.
Thank you. Awesome. From 440, avoid contact with any person who tries to stop you. Who tries to get you to stop studying and learning those things that may be of the most constructive value. This applies to like a lot of, I think it applies to a lot of non-white people, because we are often distracted by other non-white people to spend our time and energy elsewhere besides things that are highly constructive. So I thought it was just quote, it was constructive. So I wanted to read it. The final one from 440 that I will share is: during the existence of white supremacy racism, death making by people killing people is not only regarded as normal, but as a most desirable part of living. And yeah, I don't think it's even possible to realize how death is celebrated and glorified and loved and like appreciated so much in this so-called society that we live in until we understand the system. Because when I in my confusion, I definitely um enjoyed and worshipped death. I guess I like the people who I thought were very interesting, and I spent a lot of time thinking about were like fictional characters like Patrick Bateman from American Psycho, and like psychopaths from like the movie Fight Club, and and all these people like have made basically celebrated death and chaos, and it's just really incorrect way to exist, and to a really incorrect way to spend your time and energy thinking. We shouldn't think like a character like Patrick Bateman is cool because he's dropping chainsaws on people. Um, so yeah, I was really I didn't even understand that. I was fascinated by death until I began to realize what has been done to the planet and what is being done to the planet by people who classify themselves as white. So yeah, and if you understand the system, if you read the ICE paper, you can see this love for killing in the area of sports, so-called hunting, of all that nonsense is just supporting white supremacy. And that's all I have to say about that quote. See if folks have things to share, chime in before I continue.
I had one. This is the very last one on page 441. When black males fail to be men and too weak-minded to resist domination by the white supremacist, racist man and racist woman, collectively, they mostly seek to brutalize each other, black females, and eventually black infants. And again, that's at the bottom of page 441.
Do you have any reasons why you that one thought to share that one?
Because whenever Mr. Fuller talks about black males, just black males not being honest with themselves in a situation that they're in, and just collectively.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I also have that one highlighted, and I think the evidence is in the pudding. How it's I consume a lot of content that discusses what's happening amongst people on planet Earth, and it's not hard at all to find news clippings of black males doing horrendous things to other black people. So I've never seen it put so bluntly before that the black males will harm the black female and then the black infant. But it's what it's my normal for sure. It's what I've experienced my entire existence. So another tragedy, another example, like another reality that I think that should be the one reason that we want to produce a system of justice and correct this um, disgusting behavior that has been trained and ingrained into us. It's because of what happens to black females and black babies under the system. So producejustice.com, pick up the book, join the effective numbers to produce a system of justice. From page 441, so-called black romance is a childish concept and a silly contradiction. And I just point to area 3 and what they call reality TV, and that's basically what people have in mind when they say they want a relationship, the average non-white person, I think. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that one. Again, same page, 441. Neither birth nor death should be of any unnecessary expense. Um, I think the way we've been trained to like put so much time and energy into like I don't know, celebrate doing whatever funerals are supposed to be is just ridiculous. And I'm just gonna speak about my own victim unit and how we had a funeral for my victim uncle, who died of a cancer in December. And the funeral was really was so tacky. They were spewing all of this religious stuff, and my victim uncle was not any type of religious victim at all, and it was just so fake. And I could just tell that this was being more done so to comfort the remaining victims on the planet, um, versus showing some sort of like respect or um, like whatever that is meant for the deceased. So yeah, it was just really ridiculous. I don't think I'll be going to um, spending all that time at a lot of any more funerals, um, because yeah, we should just get rid of the dead as effectively and efficiently as possible. Send our condolences and continue trying to end the race war. Um, and the final one I have from this page is: memories are sometimes very short. Therefore, try making a record of essential lessons of everything that you read about or hear about that is likely to be of essential use in problem solving. Um, yeah, white people are perhaps white people becoming master record keepers. Record keepers has allowed them to maintain and establish the system. So perhaps copying them and developing our way of maintaining records just by taking notes and journaling and relaying this information to other victims may be constructive into getting closer or attempting to solve this problem. Um, yeah, and oh yeah, and the last one is about the one that Dan read. So yeah, any folks have some thoughts to share on any quotes that they read or what's been discussed or read so far?
I have one on page 442. To show off is to deliberately attract attention to yourself more than to attract attention to your constructive deeds. I feel like a lot of non-whites do that. Um, it's a way of feeling better of what the system have gave them or what they feel like they work for. Um, is to attract attention. But like I always tell people, attention comes both ways, whether it's good attention or bad attention, you're going to attract both. Um, but as far as attracting attention for a constructive deed, I feel like, yeah, you could do a constructive deed, but it's just the attention of how media is. Meaning, like a lot of people take the deeds that they do for the homeless, but it's just to raise their numbers up as opposed to actually just doing it just to actually be constructive.
Thank you, Miss Carice. Any folks who'd like to share? And I think that quote was very significant, and Yeah, thanks again, Miss Johnson.
At the bottom of page 444, all problems should have been solved before they become problems. I think that's an excellent quote. I've always thought about that myself, especially when it comes to like building infrastructures, like collapsing and falling. I'm like, why didn't they see that this was going to happen beforehand? I mean, obviously, it was built poorly, or like the sprinkler system doesn't work properly, and they know already. Like, what comes to mind? Greenfield, what happened in UK, and also when people get run over and stuff like that. And I try to see things like before they happen. I try to predict, definitely, watching everything around me and trying to predict, okay, this is about to happen. The next thing is about to happen, so that I could try to, be safe myself. So if we end racism, if we end injustice, then I hope I'm making sense, but that would solve a lot of problems. That would solve, yeah, all of our, but I've also learned that, all this is done by design. They don't want to solve problems. White people don't want to solve problems. They want, the chaos and the mistreatment and the confusion. They want it to continue. So yeah, that's all I have for now.
Yeah, that's also another amazing quote. You read it so fast. I'm gonna read it again. It says, "All problems should have been solved before they became problems." And I'm looking specifically at the problem of racism and white supremacy. I feel like just the whole reality that like selling people to other people was something established probably before the system of white supremacy. That's an indication that, like, this is a problem and maybe we should take care of this. But no, it just kind of got out of hand, and then it seems that the white people when they started doing like possibly the establishing of white supremacy, the non-white people were not able to understand that they were witnessing a huge problem forming that could have been solved or corrected before it became the problem we know today as the system of white supremacy. So this quote is very significant, and it's just one sentence, but it says so much. So thanks again, Ms. Helen.
That means a lot of non-white people are going to have to work on their self and situational awareness, because non-white people were grossly incorrect cooperating with the system of white supremacy. And look how it's thrown everything in the known universe off balance. So are we now, with all the information that we've been allowed to have, partly to blame because the system still exists?
Oh, I think I think for sure non-white people are partly to blame for the system being still here, but the people who are to blame the most are white people. But for sure, like,
For sure.
every non-white person who has birthed an offspring that did not prepare them to what they was coming into or tell them what they were coming into is definitely at fault in many ways. But the problem seems to has always been white people. Thanks for that, Mr. Ray 1/0.
I just wanted to comment on what Ms. Helen was saying about the problems. This is something I've also been noticing myself as well. Most recently with the Delta variants and a lot of the misinformation or conflicting information, I should say, causing a lot of confusion coming from the CDC and the WHO about, people not needing to wear masks indoors or wear masks in certain settings. Yet people who are vaccinated can still pass around the virus. I've been seeing that go on for a couple months now, and for me, it seems like a lot of problems are going to arise from this because we have a population of people who are spreading the virus, whether knowingly or unknowingly, to people who may or may not be vaccinated. But if there's still a chance that it can be spread around, why not take the most precautions? By having people, I don't know, wear masks and do other things. But I think that that's something that definitely falls under this category of, creating problems and not solving problems before they start. Yeah, that's what I want to add.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Mr. Kwaku. This whole I just know that there's an NYC pass when it works, and I suspect there's going to be a California pass coming as well, which is going to be very interesting to see how this all pans out, because white people are not interested in being told to do anything. So it'll be interesting to see the white people's response to all the stuff that's happening and being told that we're supposed to be doing.
I have a quote on page 443. Be suspicious. Much of what is said about history is not necessarily true. I feel like kids start to know. We start to learn history is not true as we get older, which is really not fair, but it's the hope that eventually, if you do have children, that you can teach them at hand about things, because we're only going to learn half of what we know, and then we're not going to know the real truth until we get older or until somebody teaches us or we seek the truth. So I just, in that quote, it made me think of the kids that are dealing with critical race theory, as far as like not learning the things that they should know, especially in Texas. So it's a sucky feeling, but this is why when it comes to learning about race and people, I'm big on teaching my child what she needs to know, because I know when she goes to school, she's not gonna know half of the things that she needs to know. Everything is gonna be basically sugar coated or insuspicious theories of kids asking questions.
Yeah, I think that's why it's very important that to go over so-called like social studies, so-called history, so just the homework that your offspring gets from these institutions, because they're learning some very interesting things, and it's very important that everything that they learn is contextualized to the system. Because I know the offspring in my life, uh, she's learning like, for example, this book that she just started school, and she brought home a book that has um like what are the stuff on a dollar bill means, right? And one of it is I'm not gonna attempt to remember it exactly, but the translation is that like basically means that God has granted the right for us to go out and take the land. Basically, is what that little Latin phrase means. So I was communicating to the offspring that this basically is saying that they got permission from God to practice white supremacy. which is what this translates to. So very important to go over the history homework, our homework with the offspring, so they could get the correct um, understanding. And every every day I'm sure to remind um, the offspring that we're in a war. Before she goes into those school grounds, I remember, don't forget we're in a war. She already has she's in the fifth grade. There's already a white lesbian child in there who allegedly has a girlfriend that she'd be hanging out with during lunch and recess. So yeah, this is the war, and the white side is definitely on their A game as per usual. So we have to attempt to do the same to end the war. Yeah, I just went on for a while there, but just discussing the race problem is one of the few things that gives me joy and makes sense to me these days. But I'll pause it to see if folks want to share quotes, chime in.
Yeah, that quote that Miss Johnson read about be suspicious, make much of what is said about history is not necessarily true. I was watching a YouTube video and I didn't take notes, and this young lady was explaining, young non-white black female was explaining how that quote about Harriet Tubman, that famous quote about she wished she could have saved more slaves if they had known they were slaves. And she was explaining how that quote is not even true. And Mr. Neely Fuller, he's mentioned that as well. He suspected that's not true. I wish I could remember the young lady's Facebook, her YouTube channel where she was breaking that down, explaining that. And it was so that just goes, I just wanted to add on to what Miss Johnson said when it came to that quote.
Very interesting. Okay, so continuing for 442. Many people seek to interfere with the sexual activities of others simply because they are not satisfied with their own. What this quote means to me is simply that the white supremacists are pushing all sorts of sexual activities that they want the masses to participate in, and I suspect one of the reasons could be what was just mentioned, that they are unsatisfied with their own sexual capabilities or the products of what happens when they sexually reproduce. But I may be in error. But nonetheless, very interesting quote. Another one from 442. The system of white supremacy racism is in every area of activity a sophisticated sewer for black people, and every black person without exception is swimming in it. And that's just wow, a brilliant way to depict what's happening to all non-white people on the planet, especially black people, all dark-skinned people, where we're swimming in like a sewer of white supremacy, of filth, disgust, and just like horridness that we should not be okay with any longer, and we should have long wanted to correct this problem and done what needed to be done. But the white supremacists have done a phenomenal job at retarding us and sabotaging our efforts and trying to get this problem solved. Continuing 442 again, the final one from this page I will share. Again, all of these quotes and the entire text is very just very useful. And every prisoner of war should have this text in their dwelling somewhere. 442, the so-called genes of most black people have proven to be powerful enough to turn white people black. The so-called genes of a few white people have proven to be powerful enough to dominate the power behavioral of all Black people. Question: whose so-called genes are the more powerful? Dang. Well, now that I have this quote, it seems that to answer the question, it would be white people. Another answer is that it doesn't matter. We should just solve the race problem and not spend so much time on trying to compete in this idea of genes being more powerful or less powerful, because that has already led to a tremendous amounts of problems on planet Earth, because at the result, at the cause of white people, I suspect mostly. Um, Moving forward on 443, in a world in which all people are out of balance with one another, each person has a mind that has its own peculiar demons. I appreciate this quote because we should all be very much aware that it's impossible for us to truly understand what it's like to contend with the mind that other people have. Like, we all have to contend with our own minds and thoughts, and whatever that means. And people like Ed Buck, Jeffrey Dahmer, and racists in general must have to contend with their own peculiar demons if they were driven to create such a evil, vile, wicked, because I don't really like to use that term wicked, but it could definitely be correctly called wicked system. So peculiar demons indeed. And it's unfortunate that many of the demons that Black people are dealing with is the result of the system of white supremacy. Like the demons summoned by white people to to continue our mistreatment. Um, to use the terminology, demons. I'm gonna read one more before I pause. 443. What value is it that a person gains the whole world, but is confused about the purpose of his or her own gender? And I don't have much to say about this quote besides um, most people, especially Black people, seem to be confused about their purpose in general. So, you know, the gender aspect is, I don't know how relevant it is at that point. But I'll pause it to see if folks have things to share. It's probably like, these amount of pages, there's probably like 40 quotes. So I'm sure folks managed to something caught someone's interest. So see.
On page 444 again, always expect most people to not agree with many of your opinions. This quote has helped me to not debate and argue with people who've read the code and people who have not read the code. And this quote is one of my favorites.
Thank you, Ms. G.
That quote is beneficial, and it does have its purposes, although I've had some interactions where not arguing leads to conflict. So, but that is an excellent suggestion though.
It's unfortunate that some people think that arguing, like, that's talking. That's a way of having a conversation. No, arguing is arguing. Debating is debating, you know?
I agree with you, and I appreciate your stance on not arguing or debating. I think that is a great counter-racist move, as some like to say, and something we all could benefit from if we were to like practice that. Um, a great usage, a great way to save time and energy, because that the whole arguing and like fist smacking and shouting is no longer what either of us, any of us, any black person should tolerate any longer while on this planet, because that is one of the many ways how we have failed to become able to correctly communicate with each other to get this problem solved, because we tolerate arguments and shouting contests and all that stuff that does not produce constructive results.
We should always stay in the question and answer lane. That helps.
Yeah, that helped me a lot today when I'm talking to a very refined suspected racist. I like this quote because I could give a crap about sports like in general, like teams, all that stuff. I'm aware it's all nonsense and detrimental to the non-white mind. But I do like telling victims about how racist sports are, and what sports actually means. I was fortunate enough to had the opportunity to talk to my victim, I mean my associate yesterday, and tell her about what golf means and what just all these sports mean, what tennis means, and for those who are interested, check out ISIS Papers, Chapter 10. But this quote is really interesting because it's true, and not a lot of people are aware, which is unfortunate. 443, during the existence of the system of white supremacy racism, many games, sports, and other forms of entertainment are designed to produce thinking and support of white supremacy racism. And whether it's admitted or not, that's what's happening. Another topic that was brought up, and it's really interesting because when I discuss counter racist code, like people also often like assume that like this is a sad existence, or it's a harsh and sad way to look at the world. But I think that this is a very constructive and helpful way to view things, because it allows us to do what needs to be done. I'm not saddened to be a prisoner of war. I'm just doing what I can to no longer be a prisoner of war by eliminating the system. And this was also something that we should embed into the young victims of racism at a tremendous early age, because the offspring, she came home after meeting people at this school for only a day and calling them friends, and I was sure to help to teach her that these people are at best associates, and just teaching her the importance of using that kind of language, because these so-called friends can be harming you the next day. So 444 says, it can be said that a true friend is a person who has proven that he or she believes in justice. And that's not my definition of a friend, but I think this is very constructive, and can be useful to folks who really don't have that concept in their brain computer yet. What actually is a friend? What actually does that mean? Just keep it trucking. Black, same page 444. Black males have proven themselves pitifully weak in reacting constructively and effectively to situations that most dominate their behavior in the known universe. a code of constructive thought, speech, and action, and could swiftly correct this. And this is accurate. If we had like something to guide our thought, speech, and behavior, we could put it into like all the black people killing, black people robbing each other, the black male and the black females arguing with each other, all the so-called baby mama drama would end if we just had a code, a counter racist logical code that just teaches us a good way, a correct way to think, speech, and behave. Fortunately, this code does exist, this concept. Producejustice.com to buy this book and learn the code. Very, very recommended. Yeah, we shouldn't be if we don't correct the system or eliminate the system, we will be prisoners of war forever. And that just doesn't make any sense to be traveling the universe, to reach like light speed travel and to still be classified as a nigger. This does not make sense to allow this to happen. So we got to solve this problem ASAP. They're trying to go to space. They're trying to go into black holes and spread white supremacy everywhere. And we should not be okay with this reality. Yeah, I'll pause for there. See if folks have things to share.
On page 443, I know I'm going back a little bit, but
no worries.
Requesting an investment may or may not be the same as begging for justice or for asking for social or economic assistance or improvement. And something that I used to do before COVID is I used to have a little list. I used to carry a little list in my pocket. And I live in an area that, well, I'm allowed to reside in an area that has quite a few like popular or famous so-called black churches. So when white people had this habit of asking non-white people for directions to the church. So when white people would ask for directions, I would hand them my list. And it would just have simple things, problems that I need to be solved, information or whatever. And I found that to be quite helpful. Sometimes they ignored the list and I ignored them. But yeah, so I just wanted to share that. Yeah, that's it.
Amazing. Thank you, Ms. B. That's something I'd like to try. 4, 4, 5. The code / native floor states, when some people say that they are not experiencing racism, white supremacy, it is because racism, white supremacy has been experienced as being normal for so long that for many, it seems not to exist as an awe-engrossing system, but only in the form of periodic incidents. And this is such a devastating perspective to have, which is to only see racism in like clusters, particularly when it's happening to you or when you're seeing it on TV in the moments like of George Floyd or Tamir Rice or Trayvon Martin. When you only see racism in those moments, but not as a 24-hour thing, then yeah, you're in a very, very dangerous and vulnerable position, especially if you're a black, non-white person. And yes, I really appreciate this quote because a lot of people do see racism this way, and it's like a person thinking racism is only like being called a nigger or something like that, when it's much, 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 much more complicated and deeper. It's deeper than that. 445. Some people seem to be involved with everything and in touch with nothing. And well, what a brilliant combination of words. I know a few victims like this, I can't say I know any Black victims like this, but I do know victims like this, who just seem to be like just they do everything, but just just I can't say which of those activities they are truly in touch with. So I appreciate that combination of words. It's such a combination of words that can be thought to be whatever we'd like. Four
Are you
or
saying
five.
that to say that they like go along with emotion, or what do you mean?
I see this as I think being distracted with many things, you know, like I know the victims I used to surround myself with were people who like kind of use like all of the hours in a day to do activities, whether it was like going out to get brunch or to go to some sort of like paint and sipping. They fill their entire days with like activities, but how many of those activities are bringing true constructive value to their existence? I wouldn't say many. So that,
I have one on page 446. At all times and in all places, everything that is said and everything that is done is either constructive or non-constructive. No exceptions. Therefore, as you learn, do your best to feed your mind and your body, and only that which is best. Um, Once you start reading code and learning, you start to distinct of what you want your body to feed itself. So basically, what you put out there is what you're giving and what you're giving to yourself. So I try my best to be constructive as possible when it comes to conversations with anybody, because these are things that not only am I feeding other people, but I'm feeding towards myself as well. It's the best way to have people know what conversations you want to have with them as constructive, so that they will come to you with unconstructive conversations that won't basically do anything for you.
yeah, having that understanding and practicing it is is Black self-respect to a high degree of just understanding that everything we choose to do is either constructive or non-constructive, and choosing to do things that are constructive at all times, at bare minimum, at most times, is a true practice of self-respect, which is not lying to yourself about what needs to be done. What needs to be done is some serious work to um, solve this problem, because we can't solve any of the world's other problems, such as climate change and just how the planet is literally becoming like is melting and freezing at the same time. Um, so we can't solve any of these problems until we stop the white people from destroying the planet with their practice of racism or supremacy. And it's very constructive to try to eliminate the system. Um, and it's very non-constructive to not do so. But thanks again, Miss Cruz, for sharing. From 445, be aware of requests for decorum being used to hide hypocrisy and tyranny. Do not confuse decorum with justice. And I understand decorum as like, like everyone's in a room is like calm and speaking like courteous, like with courtesy. And white people are really good at being nice, and while at the same time practicing racism and white supremacy by passing legislation and policies that lead to non-white people dying or being dislocated unjustly. So this quote stood out to me as well. 446, Um, during the existence of white supremacy, racism, when something happens that should not happen, that involves conflict between white people and non-white people, say to the extent that white supremacists, racists are involved, these events should be expected. And this is a great script just to have one ready to be able to communicate to whoever when you're given an opportunity to discuss an event involving conflict with non-white people and black people. I mean, non-white people, white people, and I would just say conflict in general. TBH, to be honest. Same page 446. During the existence of white supremacy racism, hypocritical speech and action is a basic requirement for our people, white and non-white people. Yeah, super, super. We have been made. Yeah, we have to function in a very just false sense of reality. We have to. It's insane. It's incorrect how we are forced to pretend like things are correct, like we have a just system, and that things are normal, or things are getting back to normal, or how we're even given silly ideas like once people are vaccinated, or once the coronavirus goes away, things are going to be back to normal. Things have never been normal while we have been in this insane system of white supremacy, and it's hypocritical just to say that you are a human being who cares about people while not working to produce justice. So very necessary inaccurate quote. Um, oh, awesome, Miss Johnson already read that one. So the final quote I have to share from this the text is from 446. The universe should be greatly populated with universal man and universal woman. Universal man, universal woman are people who practice justice and correctness, people who always say and do the most constructive thing in all areas of existence, including economics, education, entertainment, labor law, politics, religion, sex, and war/counter war. Yes. So far, there's no such thing as universal man or woman. Currently, we are a planet full of um, violent white people and um, non-white people who have been trained to be very violent and mistreat one another. So this is really despicable situation we were born into. Doesn't have to always be like this. But if we do not solve this race problem, we will all die and in our cells in a prison cell. We will all die in prison. The prison of white supremacy. And it's probably been over 1 billion black people who have fallen victim to this system already, and that's way too many. So this book has, I think this book can definitely help a lot of black people do what needs to be done, and perhaps if an effective number of people practice some of the counter racist code in this book, we will be able to disrupt the system so much that white people will stop seeing us as silly clowning niggers, but as creatures deserving of justice, or deserving of to be taken off the planet. All of us put an end to this slow torture method they have currently in place. But I'll pause there to see if folks have stuff to chime in.
Third,
Go ahead, Ms. B.
Third quote from the top on page 445. By thinking, speaking, and acting to produce justice, balance between people, you will automatically be producing the non-existence of the Black ghetto and Black ghetto culture. And something that I like to do is I pick up the trash or garbage that people leave behind within the place that I'm allowed to reside in the building that I'm allowed to reside in. And I have a separate little broom and a little mop and dustpan. And I think about Nelly Fuller's quote, you know, when he talks about like the ghetto should be the cleanest place on the planet and stuff like that. Well, I don't want to misquote him, but it's something like that, he says. And I constantly like, I think about that. So, you know, I make sure that when I have trash or something in my hand, I make sure to throw it in the garbage can outside on every corner, and to pick up behind people within the building that I reside in. And yeah, I just want to get rid of. I hope to be the example and just get rid of this thing that, oh, you know, the ghetto has to be dirty and gritty and this, that, and the other. So, and I'm just trying to play my part, or you know. So, yeah, that's it.
I get you, Miss B. I have the same thing in my head where my siblings, they clean the street sidewalks because a lot of the neighbors, because they have landlords, they leave like a lot of trash out due to the fact that they feel like it'll get picked up for free. You know, that's out here. But always growing up, I hated littering. I always hated it for some reason. I just didn't like people littering. And I didn't like littering myself. If I had a trash and I wasn't close to a trash can, I would just hold on to it until I find a trash can. But I feel like people only treat the ghetto that such way because they're gonna do what they see everybody else doing. So if they see something dirty, they're gonna treat it as such. If they see something clean and nice, they're gonna treat it as such. But I feel like you can't be the follower of the situation. You gotta have to kind of lead on your own.
Mm. Love. Well, I won't say love, but it's very nice, pleasant to see practicing that sort of counter racist behavior, picking up litter and trash around your environment is always constructive, and especially if other young victims of racism see that, perhaps their brain computer will be able to receive a message that littering is not something we should normalize or be doing. Other comments folks wanted to share?
I would just add in one more quote. This one is on 446. It's like the fourth one down. It is not how much of you is in church. It is how much of church is in you. That quote came to mind because Black people are allegedly like the most religious group of people, but we're in a pretty pitiful situation despite how much we go to church.
Mm.
I agree with that. I feel like people have to understand that God is not a religion. Your relationship is not going to be better than the next person that does not go to church, because a person that does not go to church probably has a more intimate relationship than a person that does go to church, to just show up to be there. So I feel like people have to understand that God is not a religion. God is an entity of all the things that is created, which is water, you know, the earth, basically, of what we live in. And that you can get in tune with all of those things that was created instead of just sitting and going by a book that you feel like these are God words. But yes, it's what's in you. It's not what you go to, kind of thing.
Mm. Exactly.
Well
Okay.
said, Miss Johnson.
Agreed.
Here, here.
Okay. Let's see. Is there other folks who wanted to share some general compensatory quotations for speech thought for thought speech interaction?
To add on to Dan's quote about church, I know of plenty of people who attend church who are the biggest hypocrites. And I know plenty of people who don't attend church who so-called not religious, and they are the most courteous, kindest people. Yeah, that's all I wanted to add to that.
Very telling of the institution of church. Um, yeah, from my experience, I quite hated the ritual of going to church and seeing all the people with the wearing the ridiculous hats and ridiculous wigs and ridiculous glittery dresses and suits. It was all very unpleasant to me, and I'm glad I discovered why. And it's because it does absolutely nothing to replace white supremacy with justice or produce productive thinking around the system. It's simply some sort of hidey hole where victims have been trained to go to feel spiritually recharged, whatever that means, but I'm not able to use that spiritual energy to do what needs to be done. But I may be digressing a bit.
Another case of showing off ism.
Oh, the whole Sunday attire? Yeah, possibly. Yeah, possibly.
Well, that's how white people used to show off their slaves by dressing them up for Sunday church. So yeah, it is.
Hmm. Not surprising. Oh, alrighty. Perhaps there are no more quotes to share. So perhaps we can transition into sharing just our overall thoughts on the text. So yeah, we just finished the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, a compensatory counter-racist guide, revised expanded edition, a textbook workbook for thought speech interaction for victims of racism and white supremacy by Neely Fuller. We just finished this text. And yeah, now's our opportunity to just share whatever thoughts we like to regarding the text, any area of people activity, the constructive benefits of this text. I won't say if any because I know there's thousands. Um, yeah, would anyone like to start, perchance?
I could go first. Quick general thoughts about the text. Uh, Starting out, reading the ISIS papers and then the shout out. But for me, I started listening to Neely Fuller before I read the text, so I had a general idea of the concept of changing your thought, speech, and action was. But really, reading the book over the past couple months, it's really helped me understand what that actually means, what it looks like, and kind of the constructive results it produces when you start to incorporate those concepts and strategies into your life. So I found the book to be very constructive, very helpful. Um, as I definitely try to understand racism, white supremacy, what it is, and how it works. Um, so those are some of my general thoughts about the text so far, or in general.
Thanks, Mr. Kwaku. Um, Yeah, this has been a true journey reading this text. I literally started reading this text in an area of the world known as South Central, and I am now in a new dwelling located somewhere in a desert. And it's been read. This text has when I even used to read it first, when I began listening to Neely Fuller first, I had never been presented with such clear logic on what's happening on planet Earth, and I was so excited to get the book, and it took a very long time to get the book. And I started reading it, and I had never read a text in my life besides the ice paper, where I was so and was enthralled by and enticed, and I didn't see the text as boring at all, but just such a so pleasant reading, and having access to information that I've always wanted to have an understanding of what's happening on planet Earth, like why Black people seem to be facing such misery everywhere, and why white people seem to be worshipped on the planet. And this text definitely answers those questions to a great extent. So yeah, I truly recommend this book, and I'm also happy that I've gotten a number of victims to purchase this text and give it a read or a skim, because I think this book is really here to help us solve the race problem, and we should be using it in that manner. But I'll pause for now. See if folks have anything to add in, just thoughts on the code book. Yeah.
I really appreciate this book. It came at the right time for me. So like, you know, learning the different areas. I had so many questions, but most of them, of course, were answered. It's something that I can always go back to. And now I feel glad that it's something that I could pass on as well. I'm glad that Mr. Fuller wrote this book. I appreciate all the new words and new coding that I know now. So now that I'm not as confused of a victim, I'm a victim that can see more than the eyes. And now I could treat other victims in a way where I'm not angry or mad at them. I'm just more sad for them because they don't know the biggest war is racism and white supremacy. So I feel like this book is very important to purchase. This book is very enlightening. It's an eye opener as much as the ICE paper. Mr. Fuller really did a great job, and I'm still gonna get my word guide. That's important to know definition of words and how it's used. But I appreciate learning this constructive material with all you guys.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. This text, what you said reminded me, and one of the another constructive benefit of this text was and allowed me to develop patience with non-white people, and especially Black people, and my own self, and just to be more aware of the kind of thinking I'm doing. Like I really enjoy my thinking a lot, and I've always been a person to enjoy daydreaming. But now I really am grateful for just the awareness that I'm thinking, and I'm in control of my thoughts for the most part, as much as I can be. And it's really therapeutic to just go somewhere where well, for me to go somewhere where I'm all alone and just really just think in a total as quiet as possible of a surrounding as I can be, and just think. And I'll have a goal. Okay, right now I'm thinking about like scenes and the book I'm working on, or I'm thinking about uh, uh, applying for this higher education. I'm gonna have to maneuver through all the racist loops and the racist nonsense. So before I was not as reflective in my thoughts or intentional, but this text and the ice papers has definitely um, instilled that in me, and I've developed a whole like codification. I've been introduced to codification. I have a like a routine now that is codified, and before I didn't have a schedule or code that I was following or something that held me accountable. But I'm duty bound to attempt to be courteous and to attempt to be serious while solving the race problem, and of course duty bound to always tell the truth and not pretend that I'm some strong, powerful man, um, or anything of that nature. Um, so it's just been a very constructive text. I know it can help the majority of Black people who um, are just should be correct thinking enough to acquire this text. Um, yeah, I'll pause there to see if folks have things to share.
05, you basically just told my life right there with the daydreaming and thinking. And I just want to thank you for putting all my thoughts into words, because I mean, you said it beautifully. This book came into my life at a very detrimental part. And yeah, I was having a lot of stress at work and a lot of conflict and trying to figure out like what's going on. And this book helped me to calm down and focus. And something that happened when I was younger, I was always told not to ask questions. Stop asking so many questions. And this book helped me to realize that no, I was on the right road back then. And to continue on that road of asking questions and thinking. And I thank Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. so much for this book, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate all of y'all.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. B. Feelings very, very much mutual. And also before I don't believe I was before the ice papers in this text, I was not I was very confused about my purpose. What I was attempting to do at the time before I realized that there was a race war happening was I was attempting to diminish the trauma that Black people were experiencing, and that led me to discover the ice papers and the code book. And I was not a problem solver, nor was I attempting to be a problem solver. And I was a person who definitely made a ton of problems, and conflict was very frequent in my existence. But the code just allowed me to really eject all of the um, um, poisonous, no, just all of the, yeah, I want to say all of the poisonous people from my life, and activities as well from my life. And I'm now, it's given me way more time to be constructive, and to make more effort of putting constructive things in my body versus non-constructive things. And yeah, just the whole aspect of being a problem solver and not wanting to create more problems. I think having a codified existence where good health is a top priority, um, allows me to prevent any problems that may come involving my own health. So I'm able to continue working to solve the problem as long as necessary. So the code just is a great way to like just really change your whole like personality, your whole behavior, thought, speech, and behavior. It's like some sort of um, counter racist, attempted counter racist therapy is what it felt like for a large part of the text. And I really appreciate Area 6, Area Politics, Area 9, War slash Counter War, and Area 3 because Area 3 is just so detrimental to non-white people or black people who just spend so much time in that area. And it's also one of the shortest sections. So perhaps a victim could pick up this book and just go straight to Area 3 and learn so much about the system, which just goes to show how constructive this book is and how useful it is. But again, I shall pause and going on a bit, see if folks have things to contribute.
It's almost as if the code is a guide for whatever ideology, whatever constructive ideology, rather, that any Black person wants to partake in. It's a way for us all to relate to each other while taking care of the most dominant problem, which is affecting us all. So, you know, the code for me has been quite beneficial, you know, in regards to how I interact with not only non-white people, but white people. And, excuse me, not only people in general, but how I interact with just nature, you know, my relationship to the creator. You know, the code, it covers everything. And I think that the purpose is, you know, it's very important to minimize conflict. You know, just, you know, we need a code for whatever that we do. And, you know, Mr. Fuller, you know, by way of the universe, you know, I think this is it. It's going to work. We just need a critical mass of people to adhere to it.
Yeah, and I oh, go ahead.
And for my closing comments on the text, I'd say this is a book you should have in your library because there's no right or wrong way to read it. I mean, when you pick up the book, you can just hop to a section, and it might have something you can use in it. And it is a code, and with code, it can always be expanded, improved, revised. So you can definitely come up with your own things for, you know, present day circumstances, like with the technology and stuff, on how you can use that to interact with other victims and all that. But yeah, you can definitely come up with your own code and use this as a guide. So that's what I got.
Thank you, Dan. Also, back to what Ray has said. I appreciate this text as well because it presents a solution to a problem that I once solved, and yeah, I think that's really significant that this book could possibly lead to no, will lead to the production of justice once we reach that effective number of prisoners of war who do what needs to be done to counter the system. Also, just I have to thank the text for all the language that has introduced me to in regards to that. I'm not dealing with police officers. I'm dealing with race soldiers who are literally designed to eliminate me at their leisure. So I have to behave in a certain way to survive encounters with race soldiers. And even if I comply in this war, I understand that my death could be at the hands of a race soldier at any moment. But having that this awareness allows me to just move in a more safe manner, and it allows me to understand of like the type of people I am dealing with on planet Earth, and also the concept of that the planet is a prison, and that greater confinement, what we call prison, is just that a greater form of this prison we are in. It's all very useful, and how I've been able to understand what has happened to victim units. I mean, yeah, people, family victim units that I know who have ended up in greater confinement um, over over having no understanding that we're in a race war that white people are waging against us. Um, yeah, this is a text that I will constantly be telling victims to get their hands on and to read, and I most certainly um, can will you cannot associate socially with people who are not attempting to practice a counter racist code, not just blanket code that sometimes gets tossed out by various black figures, but a counter racist code that comes from logic, that comes from a somewhat understanding of white supremacy, what it is and how it works. And another good thing about this text is that it's written by a person who did not go to college, who did not uh, he was not implanted by all these super hard words to understand. So this book is understandable by a lot of people. I know he has mentioned that he's made a error in not making it easy to read by all ages, but it is very easy to understand and to read compared to a book like Irugu, which we also covered in this book club, which was a very hard read. So we learned a ton from this book, and it also was not that hard of a read. And the concepts again that are introduced to us in this book, me particularly, the tragic arrangement concept, the triple T's, tacky, trashy, and terroristic. Um, it's just all very useful to have in our brain computer, so we can just easily identify what's happening. And I think this code allows us to develop that hive mind that the white side has. The white people are in sync with how they practice racism, and for the most part, yeah, they have their individual ways, but the most part, they'll see a non-white person do something, and they will have similar thoughts. I suspect having an effective number of non-white people will have us to understand the system in similar ways. So we'll always have some idea what we're looking at. And so we won't even have to use the word sometimes. We can just, look at each other and just, give a nod to say, yeah, white people are doing what white people do. And I think that is very useful in countering white supremacy. But I can talk about how the constructive benefits of this book literally are they. Um, Probably the last thing I'll mention is how constructive this book is in regards of correcting the relationship between black males and black females, and also just humbling us in a very respectful by just telling us the truth like every person deserves. So we the book teaches black males that they're just that black males, and black females are just that black females, and we have to work together to become universal men and universal women. So a constructive goal, this book gives us constructive goals and actual tools to use to reach them. So very, I don't know, I can't give a higher recommendation for this book than I've attempted to do. Um, and as I've been speaking of it, but yeah, I guess that's a wrap for me. 9 areas of people activity. Very all victims should remember them: economics, um, education, entertainment, labor law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And we're being dominated, totally obliterated in all of these 9 areas. And it's been time we produce a system of justice, or let white people have the planet and just, have them eliminate all of us, and we'll have a different existence, hopefully, without white supremacy. Um, yeah. Folks like to chime in or add to, or is everyone satisfied? All right, excellent. Um, email countering RWS to join us as we begin the study on Kyrie and Aharo's race code war. Thanks everyone for their participation, their insight, and joining us and me as we study the system. As I tend to say, as we finish the book, this work is not for the weak. Definitely not easy to face the reality of white supremacy, to truly understand what we're dealing with. Is not for the weak, and it's not easy. And I commend all of you, and have a great appreciation for all of you being here, and sharing your insight on how we can solve this problem. Yeah, that was, and I adjourned there.